Guys, what's the craziest thing a woman did after you rejected them? I was friends with her for a while, and then we decided to give dating a try. It was supposed to be a really chill, maybe then more serious kind of thing, basically going in with no expectations. I really liked her, and she was completely normal at the beginning. I actually started connecting with her on a deeper level, which isn't something I'm used to. I don't connect easily with people and rarely have serious relationships of any kind. About 2 months in, she went off the rails. She started pressuring me to go to the courthouse and get married and wanted to move in with me. She quit her job but refused to apply for disability, instead expecting me to take care of her and her teenager. If I was at work and didn't text back immediately, she'd get pissed, even though she knew phones weren't allowed at our desks. We worked at the same place. Then she started demanding to spend every minute at my apartment and insisted I leave work early. It escalated to the point where she would call my coworkers and threaten to hurt herself. When I stopped playing into that nonsense, she started coming to work to see if my car was there, leaving flowers or notes on the windshield. Hanging out with friends or wanting time to myself became a huge sin in her eyes. By this point, I wanted out. Just after 3 months, I broke it off. She had gotten so unhinged that I needed a friend with me to make sure nothing happened. I went about my business, and for about 4 hours, I didn't hear from her. I thought, wow, maybe she's taking it better than I thought. Nope. Suddenly, I got a flurry of texts, probably close to 50 in the first hour. She made threatening comments like, "It's on and you're in for it." I had to block her number, so she moved to Facebook. She refused to return my key and made all sorts of ridiculous claims about how I had ruined her life and was her true love. Remember, this was a 3-month relationship, and she had been with a guy for 8 years before I came along. Eventually, I blocked her on Facebook. After that, she started trying to friend all my relatives on Facebook and posting statuses about me. Some friends of mine had accepted her friend request previously, and they started messaging me, asking if I was okay and safe. I didn't want to hear the actual threats, but I knew she was claiming she'd reveal all my secrets, even though she didn't actually know anything no one else did. I liked that it backfired because she did reveal my biggest secret, and no one cared. I had to change my locks, of course, and she was legally banned from coming onto the apartment property. She even found my livestream account and appeared on a livestream, threatening to hurt herself, but thankfully Mod Powers allowed me to permanently ban her. I threatened to call the police, and after that, she left me alone. A while later, I saw a guy who looked suspiciously like the man she had spent 8 years with, fiddling with the cable box on the apartment building, and my internet went out. The cable company said someone had cut the line to my apartment. A year later, people were messing with my door late at night, and the cover on the deadbolt, the kind you lift to use a skeleton key, was always being tampered with. Later, I got an email from her because her kid had left for Job Corps, and she wanted me to feel guilty. I ignored it, of course. I've moved twice since then and have been especially wary of anyone fiddling with my door at night. I don't know if it was her, but it could have been. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't heard anything from her since, and I just hope I never run into her anywhere. Story 2. About 6 years ago, I was in a relationship with this girl and things weren't working out. In all fairness, I had cheated on her. She found out because I broke down and confessed. As you can imagine, she didn't trust me at all, but I still wanted to make things better. So I did my best to regain that trust. After 3 years of dating, I couldn't take it anymore. I know I messed up by cheating, but instead of making progress, things just got worse. I would go to her house, and I kid you not, 5 minutes after leaving, she would call to make sure I wasn't going somewhere else. She wanted to sleep with the webcam on so she could watch me, and the list of controlling behaviors goes on and on. After a couple of months of that, I just couldn't take it anymore. I told her I needed some space to think things over. Naturally, she got pissed and started calling and texting nonstop. 40 missed calls and messages in 2 days. Some were threatening, others begging for forgiveness. After 2 days of this, I went home for the weekend. Since she lived only 10 minutes from my parents' house, I knew she would come by to try to corner me into getting back together. I told my mom what would happen and begged her, "Please don't let her in tomorrow. I know she's going to try to come in." Next morning at 6, guess who showed up? My ex. She literally just walked into my house while I was still sleeping. Thank God. My dad had to block her from coming into my room, but she still insisted that she had to speak to me. This is where things got really crazy. She told my parents she was pregnant. Luckily, my mom is smart and decided to call her bluff. She took her to the lab for 2 pregnancy tests, which thankfully came back negative. But it didn't stop there. She continued texting me every day, begging for forgiveness. I replied once just to let her know it was okay and that we should leave things as they were. But the messages kept coming for months. She would drive near where I lived, and I would run into her at random places I knew she didn't like. The whole ordeal really took a toll on me. I was skeptical about entering. another relationship for a while because it had been such a crazy ride. Luckily, I eventually found someone who doesn't have those tendencies. Nowadays, whenever my ex's name comes up, we jokingly call her the crazy one. She turned out to be okay after all this time and is in a relationship with a girl, so I'm happy for her. Even after all the crazy stuff we went through. Story 3. I'll do my best to remember the details of this relationship I had from ages 18 to 22. But I'm 30 now, and memories can get fuzzy. Here goes. I met a beautiful girl who had migrated here with her family from the Philippines a year or two before we met. I instantly liked her. She was super nice, attractive, and we had a lot in common. But honestly, I think the reason I thought all these things was that I didn't know any better. After a year of dating with only minor arguments or disputes, we moved in together. That's when the serious trouble started. We would fight over the dumbest things, and she would take it to a level that wasn't even close to appropriate. These fights became more and more common, and my resentment toward her grew steadily. She would even get physical at times, spew hateful things at me, make me feel awful, and then reel me back in with tears and apologies. And somehow, we'd continue on with our life together. It became more frequent, and the severity increased. We broke up a few times, but she would essentially stalk me until she convinced me to get back together with her. I think I had just grown used to it, and I believed I was responsible for helping take care of her. She threatened to hurt herself multiple times, physically attacked me with weapons, including knives, had the cops called on me and on her, and was hospitalized for her threats. She lied to me about being pregnant, lied about being on the pill, and actually became pregnant but lost the baby at 5 months, and neglected to tell me she already had a child in the Philippines. The stalking during our breakups was awful because she used multiple tactics to get to me, showing up where I lived, sending her friends to tell me I needed to talk to her for closure, claiming she was pregnant, going to my workplace and flirting with coworkers and customers to get my attention. There was more, but I'm getting tired just thinking about all the crap she pulled. In the end, I realized I didn't have the ability to stay broken up from her forever if she was that persistent. I still feel terrible about what I did next, but at the time, I was just so tired of everything. I'd been denying going out with a cute girl from work who made it clear she was into me. One night, I finally said, "Sure, let's go out." We ended up sleeping together. I didn't go home to her afterward, and I ignored her texts and calls asking where I was. I broke up with my ex the next day. Eventually, she found out who the other girl was and harassed her constantly, saying terrible things. After I spoke to the other girl one last time, she finally left me alone for good. My misdeed had created a rift my ex couldn't get over, and she left me alone. I've hardly heard from her since. While I don't recommend anyone go through what I did, I hope someone reading this can learn from my mistakes. Recognize the signs early and stand up for yourself, instead of losing your worth and getting beaten down. Even if it feels like it's you two against the world, realize that you deserve better, and that there are plenty of fish in the sea. And if you're thinking this could only happen to someone with low self-esteem, you're wrong. It sneaks up on you if you're not careful. I was varsity baseball and golf, had lots of friends, did well in school, and had great family support. Just be sure to leave behind the person who isn't good for you and don't look back. Maybe get a Bumble account and see what's out there? I don't know, but good luck to everyone. And I hope you find someone who treats you right. Story 4. She tried to come over to my house and scream at me from outside. Little did she know my mom doesn't play that crap and went out there and yelled at her 20 times worse than she ever expected. Story 5. I rejected a girl once, and about 2 to 3 months later, she catfished me. She said she was just proving that I'd end up going out with her anyway by pretending to be someone completely different. A police report and a restraining order later, she was out of my life. Story 6. Does after a breakup count? If so, I was graduating from my master's, had low self-esteem, and my ex was heavily hinting that she wanted to get married. I didn't, and I was very clear about that. She broke it off right before I went to visit my parents for about a week. I was a bit bummed on the way home and for a couple of days after. Then she called and said she wanted to talk when I got back. By then, I had a feeling she wanted to get back together. If we got engaged or married, that's exactly what happened. When I got back, she acted like everything was fine and started talking about us getting serious. We sat down and I told her it was over. I was pissed. She became depressed, ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and threatened to hurt herself. I pulled the knife away, got cut myself, locked her in my bathroom where there was nothing sharp, and called a friend to give us a ride so I could take her home. I didn't want to leave her alone in a cab and risk her doing something. That wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to 30 texts and 5 missed calls. I ignored them. It escalated to 40 texts a day and 20 missed calls for about a week. Then came notes left on my car. Then one of her friends started coming to my place to talk, asking what went wrong and apologizing on her behalf. I told her clearly I was not getting back together with my ex. When that didn't work, she sent 2 friends to beat me up. Luckily, my friends were at my apartment and they backed off. The next morning, I found 2 slashed tires on my car and almost missed a job interview. She started stalking me by sitting in a cafe across the street from my place for hours, watching who came and went and at what time. The final straw came about 3 months later. I had started dating someone new, and we went back to my apartment to watch a DVD and relax. About an hour in, I got a call from a friend saying my ex had called him. She described the girl with me perfectly: brown hair, red blouse, and said she was too ugly for me and that she wanted to hurt her. I ended up cooking dinner and opening a bottle of wine just to kill time until my ex finally left her spot at the cafe. After that, I changed my car, apartment, phone number, and email addresses. I haven't heard from her since. Story 7. I dated a girl for a couple of weeks, and on our 3rd date, we hung out at my place and talked. She told me she thought men who watch porn were disgusting and that if they were in a relationship, it counted as cheating. About 10 minutes later, she suddenly asked to use my computer. I knew the last thing I had open wouldn't impress her, so I said maybe some other time. She got way too angry about it and claimed she just wanted to write me an email about how much she liked me. I said it would be best to call it a night and drove her home. She stayed quiet until halfway there, then said, "My dad's best friend is a cop. I can say what I want." I took it as an attempt to intimidate me. When I dropped her off, she started crying loudly, fell down in her parents' driveway, and crawled to the front door. The next day, I was arrested for essay. It took a week for her to admit she made it up, but the charges weren't dropped for 7 months. Story 8. I went on one very low-key date that she asked me on, and I told her as gently as possible that I wasn't feeling it. She completely lost it. She started showing up at random places I was at and pretending it was a coincidence. I got calls from different numbers. She made fake social media accounts to contact me and even tried to befriend my friends. There were self-harm threats as well. She made up friends and relatives dying. She posted photos of me while I was unaware she was nearby. She invented boyfriends to try to make me jealous, and even staged a fake pregnancy scare involving one of them. I genuinely don't know how she thought that would change my mind. This went on for a while until I moved away for unrelated reasons. It was many years ago, and I can't even remember her name now. I hope she's forgotten mine too. After a different breakup, another woman pulled the "I'm pregnant" card on me. Positive test in hand and everything. I drove her to a clinic for a professional test. She wasn't pregnant, of course, but what a truly crappy tactic. Story 9. I was relatively good-looking and popular in high school, and I was aware that girls liked me. One of them was a girl I was studying for an AP exam with. She lived a couple of blocks away and would come over when I got home from baseball practice. One night, while we were quizzing each other, she said something like, "If you get all of these right, I'll let you kiss me." I didn't get them all right, but she said I could kiss her anyway. I laughed, told her, "Nope, I had to get them all right," and went back to studying. Later that night, she emailed me saying she saw me as more than a friend and wanted to know if I felt the same. She was cool and I liked hanging out with her, but I didn't want to date her, so I gave the whole "I value our friendship" response. I know it's cliche, but instead of accepting it gracefully, she told our APUS history teacher that I was harassing her. That teacher also happened to be my baseball coach. If you've only seen American Teen movies, you might think he talked to me about it and we laughed it off. In reality, I got benched for a game and spent the next few practices running laps around the field. It's not really a horror story, but it was still a crappy thing to do, just because a guy turned you down. Story 10. A little backstory. I was in high school and found out my girlfriend was cheating on me, so I broke up with her. She wanted to get back together, but I wasn't going to fall for that again. About once a month, she would text me trying to start a conversation so we could get back together. I kept it to small talk for maybe 5 minutes before ending it. Every time I rejected her, she got absolutely pissed. She badmouthed me around school, tried to convince my friends that I was gay, and even claimed that I beat her. The list goes on. She also tried to convince me she was pregnant, making comments like, "You're going to be a dad." I went to her house one Saturday and told her I'd pay for a ESO test, but she got really angry and started making excuses. Luckily, nobody ever believed her. I've graduated now, so I don't have to deal with her anymore, though she still tries to get back together. Story 11. My sister-in-law's best friend. I couldn't stand being around her. She was obnoxious, stupid, and dressed like a $10 oar. My brother and sister-in-law were always planning date nights for the 4 of us, then somehow finding a way to disappear so the 2 of us were left alone. I was nice at first, but her flirting quickly went into overdrive. She was always smiling at me, touching me, and laughing at my jokes, even though I wasn't trying to be funny. I had to put the brakes on everything. I became short with my answers, and practically sat on my hands, because I wanted to be sure I wasn't sending any signals. After several get-togethers, she finally got the hint. Unfortunately, she couldn't handle the rejection and started bad-mouthing me to anyone who would. Listen, I was confronted several times by family members and mutual friends about how mean I was to her. I was even told she claimed to someone I don't even know that I got drunk and started grabbing her. She couldn't handle rejection like a grown-up, so she made me out to be an a-hole. Story 12. When I was in high school, a girl had a major crush on me and decided to write me a note one day. She found my picture in the yearbook, but because of a printing error, the wrong name was printed next to my photo. She had someone give me the note addressed to the wrong name, and it went on and on about how she was in love with me and all that. I honestly thought she was attractive. She was weird, but in a kind of 90s, short hair, alternative cute way. She was 2 grades below me, but I went up and introduced myself, and we became friends. One day she confided in me that she had never kissed anyone, and I said I would show her. Smooth, right? So we made out for a little, while at a friend's house, and things were fun. Then things kind of turned. The next day she asked me out, and I told her that I thought we were good friends and that I didn't think going out was a good idea. Let me stop here and say this was stupid teenage peer pressure bullcrap. All of my friends thought she was super weird and made fun of me for kissing her. If they hadn't been around, I might have gone out with her because I did like her. But I let my friends get in my head. After I told her, she burst into tears. Full-on, uncontrollable sobbing in the lunchroom. I felt awful. I wasn't a guy who had ever had to turn a girl down. I wasn't some ladies' man, and I'd been in her position before, so I felt genuinely terrible. Over the next few days, there were tear-filled phone calls begging me to date her, saying we were perfect together. I worked at Kmart at the time, and she would call me at work, crying. Then she called my house when I wasn't home and talked to my mother, my brother, and my stepfather. After that, she started calling my friends and asking them to convince me. One night, she showed up at Kmart wearing a big overcoat with nothing on underneath. The phone calls had already started getting overly intimate, with her saying she wanted me to take her V-card. She wanted me to do it with her in the parking lot after my shift. I declined, then the calls shifted again. She started talking about wanting a family with me and what our kids would look like, and it was getting a little bizarre. I started thinking that something wasn't right, and that she might have mental issues. Eventually, her mother contacted my mother and asked why I was harassing her daughter. My mother laughed and jokingly said, "My son is terrified of your daughter," and told her that she was calling 10 times a night. Apparently, she had her mom convinced that I was the one going after her. Then, one day, over the summer, the calls stopped. No more random visits at work. It turned out she was having some kind of psychotic breakdown. She had made a shrine to me in her closet with pictures of me from where I have no idea, and articles of my clothing she had somehow gotten. The breaking point was that she had been taken advantage of by a much older man after she told him I didn't like her because she wasn't experienced enough. I was a virgin. He offered to teach her some things. She was hospitalized, and I didn't see her for years. Fast forward about 3 years. I'm at a club, and a group of very attractive women walk into the bar area, and she's with them. She was absolutely gorgeous. I didn't know if I should talk to her because I felt like I had been the cause of her breakdown, so I grabbed my beer and sat across the room. She was way out of my league now, and her friends were just as beautiful. About half an hour later, she spotted me and made her way over. She was completely nice and not weird at all. We talked. For a while, and she told me she went to live with an uncle in New York after she got out of the hospital. Her uncle worked as an assistant to a famous photographer and discovered her. She started working as a model while living in NYC and going to school. Her friends were also models, her roommates, and they had come with her to visit family on vacation. It turned out she ended up much better off than I did. I still talk to her on Facebook from time to time. She's now a mom with 2 kids and has a cool little family, and she's still amazing looking. Story 13. She was overly cheery, kind of a princess type, not used to being told no. We'll call her Princess. At a college party at my buddy's apartment, she started coming on to me. I wasn't interested. I was much more interested in another girl who was discussing the merits of how taxation is a form of theft, with a circle of people playing cards. We'll call her Porcupine. After about 25 minutes of trying. To ignore her, Princess decided I was playing hard to get. She accidentally spilled her drink on me and offered to help me dry off. I declined and asked my buddy if I could grab a shirt from his room. I went into his room to get a shirt, and I guess she followed me because she wrapped her arms around me from behind and started feeling me up. I slipped out of her grasp and told her to get away from me. She wasn't having it and blocked the door. Then she said that if I tried to push past her, she'd tell everyone I attacked her. And who were they going to believe? This is the scenario every guy frigging dreads. Because she was right. If she had claimed I attacked her, there was no way in hell anyone would have believed me, a native, introverted computer major guy, over a pretty, popular, social butterfly girl half my size. Thankfully, Porcupine had come looking for me since it was my turn, wondering what the hell was taking me so long to change my shirt. She overheard the situation and told Princess to get the hell out of the room, which, begrudgingly, she did. That was the only time a girl ever tried to coerce me like that. And now we enter TIFU territory, believing Porcupine was looking for me for more than just cards. Thank you, alcohol and impaired judgment. I made a move on her. Turns out Porcupine plays for the other team. I made a complete jerk of myself in front of her. Thankfully, she took it well, politely rejected me, and explained her girlfriend would be very upset. We went back to playing cards, and my face was red as a Coke can. Story 14. She called me, crying and screaming like a total psychopath. Then she got in her car and drove across 3 states to Florida, where I live. Luckily, she had no idea exactly where I lived. And South Florida is a big area. Lesson learned. Never sleep with a 21-year-old when you're in your 30s. I stick to my age bracket now. Story 15. We were friends and hooked up a couple of times. Told her I didn't want to hook up anymore because I was interested in somebody else. We talked on and off for a bit, but never really hung out because of our history. I didn't feel comfortable seeing her in person. Strictly platonically. Then one day, she texted me saying that she was essayed and needed someone to talk to. I called her to check if she was okay, and she was bawling on the phone. I made an exception about not seeing her in person this time. When I was with her, she ran to me and cried in my arms for a little while, then slowly started to run her hands. I told her I wasn't into it, and she went off. She started screaming about how I could reject her in her time of need, that she just needed somebody to care about her, love her, hold her, and touch her body, etc., etc. The real kicker? Somewhere in her rambling, she admitted that she had completely lied about the essay. I dropped her off a block away from her house, told her to get the hell out of my car, and just ghosted her after that. Story 16. I dated this girl in high school, and she was really clingy, so I broke up with her. The next day, I came home to find out she had been calling my house every 5 minutes and hanging up. She wouldn't stop calling, even after I picked up and asked her to stop. We eventually had to call the police. A few days later, I ran into her dad, and he apologized for her behavior. Years later, she moved in with a friend of mine and ended up scamming him out of a ton of money. Apparently, he was giving her money for rent and bills, but she didn't use it for any of that. She moved out of their apartment, and when my friend got home one night, he found out he was being evicted. And she was gone. Story 17. I was at a bar when a semi-attractive woman came up to me. I was with a couple of friends and in a solid relationship, so I didn't really want to talk to her, but I also didn't want to be rude and completely ignore her. We had a brief 5-minute conversation of small talk, and then she asked me to get a drink with her at a table so we could talk. I declined. Instead of just walking away, she started saying things like, "What? Am I ugly or something? Is there something wrong with me? Are you gay?" And other stuff like that. Before walking away, she threw her half-full martini in my face. The bartender gave me a free beer after asking her to leave. Story 18. I was dating a girl. She was 20, and I was 22 at the time. And things were clearly not working out. The only thing keeping me from ending things was that I had left my favorite John Mayer hoodie at her place and couldn't figure out how to get it back without a ton of awkwardness. I decided there was no way around it, so I called her to tell her it wasn't working out, and that we needed to break up. I also said I was coming over to get my sweatshirt, but she could leave it on her porch if she didn't want to see me or talk to me. No luck. There. I pull up to her house, and she's standing in her front yard. My hoodie is lying behind her in the grass. I get out of my car, and before I can say anything, she starts yelling at me. I should mention it was a nice mid-June evening, and many of her neighbors, sitting on their porches in this idyllic suburban scene, got to witness all of it. This goes on for around 13 minutes, non-stop, with her going on and on while I say nothing. Finally, she runs out of things to yell, and as she's catching her breath, I ask, "Can I have my hoodie back?" She throws it at me, and I bolt to the car and out of the driveway before she can start up again. The hoodie was unharmed. Story 19. I knew her for about 4 months. Let's call her Emily. She was in my biology class. It all started when she randomly told me she had a huge crush on me and wanted to go out. I was flattered, but I really didn't want to be in a relationship, so I politely rejected her. I asked if we could still be friends, and she said yes. 3 weeks before my biology final, I tore my meniscus. I had to miss 3 weeks of classes because I needed surgery and was in excruciating pain. I couldn't even walk. I asked Emily for some help, and a couple of days before the final, she graciously tutored me for hours. I thanked her profusely, so I went into the final calm, cool, and collected. The professor hands me the exam, I look at it, and my heart sank. Nothing I had learned was on the final. I was completely outraged. Emily had screwed me over. A week later, we got our results. I failed, and Emily aced it. I ended up failing the class and had to retake it. Story 20. Mine is pretty tame compared to the others, but this girl wanted me to ask her to homecoming. I had been dating my girlfriend at the time for 2 years, so I was obviously going to take her. She didn't like that because apparently I was in love with her, just for being nice and talking to her in English class. Anyway, she asked me, and I said no, I was going with my girlfriend, but told her she was more than welcome to hang out with us, and we'd even dance with her. She got pissed and stormed off. 15 minutes later, I got smacked in the side of the head with a plate of fresh French fries covered in ketchup. She then had some kid go to the office and claim that I had spit in her face. I almost got expelled because she was in tears and really selling it. Thankfully, the snack bar attendant saw everything and intervened before anything happened. She didn't get in trouble, and the school just acted like it was over and done with. She moved to Alaska, or something after that. Story 21. I met a girl at a party, and we kind of hit it off. She was cute and funny, so we went on a few dates. It turned out we weren't a love connection, so I broke it off. For the next month, I got random Facebook messages and texts from her family members. She had apparently been gushing to them about how I was the one and that she was waiting for me to pop the question. Her aunt was very disappointed in me. Her mom didn't appreciate me taking advantage of her. And her cousin thought creeps like me deserve to rot in hell. That was a fun month. Story 22. In my sophomore year of college, there was a girl I ran into from time to time. School with fewer than 3,000 students. Every time we saw each other, we exchanged casual greetings and went our separate ways. A mutual friend once warned me to be careful because she was really into me. I actually laughed it off. We'd never had a proper conversation, and I didn't even know her last name. Big mistake. One night she showed up at my doorstep, drunk and wearing a short dress, pounding on the door until my housemate went to wake me up. I was half asleep when she asked me to walk her back to her dorm. I protested, but she insisted that she didn't feel safe and needed me to escort her. I groggily walked her back across campus, and when we got to her room, she darted inside, told her roommate to leave, and invited me in. I politely refused, which only made her more aggressive and insistent. I left the dorm and started heading back to my place, but she caught up to me and said she would escort me home instead. Most of the walk was awkward silence, but toward the end, she started complaining about how cold it was. By then, I was fully awake and pretty annoyed, so I told her she was acting crazy and needed to go to bed. She didn't like that. It clearly triggered something, and she took a flailing punch at my face, followed by scratching at my cheeks, neck, and chest. She was small, and after the initial shock, it was easy enough to catch her wrists and restrain her. I asked her what she was doing, and she just laughed. I let her go, walked quickly to my front door, and as I was closing it, I heard her ask if I was going to invite her in. After I shut the door, she stood outside for a good 5 minutes before finally leaving. My housemates were stunned when they saw the scratch marks. It looked like a cat had attacked me, especially around my neck. There was bleeding, and a piece of torn skin was hanging loose. It was such a sudden attack that it didn't hurt when it actually happened. I cleaned the wounds and went to bed. To this day, I honestly don't know what to make of it. I've never met anyone like her since. Story 23. This happened in 2003. My cousin rejected a girl back in high school because he was dating someone else. Instead of accepting it, she sent a group of guys to our house to try to jump him. Luckily, he wasn't home that day. He was staying at his mom's place in the Bronx. She eventually found out where his mom lived and sent her friends there instead. They ended up beating the hell out of one of his friends, thinking it was him. The poor guy landed in the hospital. All of them got caught, and the girl was charged with assault and stalking. They were suspended and spent some time in juvie. Story 24. I was out drinking with my wife and some friends. We went into a bar and I ordered a beer while everyone else figured out what they wanted. Eventually, they decided they wanted to go to a different bar. Fine, I'll finish my beer and meet you there. So the two women went off to find a bar they liked better, while the other guy and I stayed put. We started talking to a woman who seemed completely normal. Spoiler, she was not. A few minutes later, the women returned and said they were going to the bar next door. At that point, we introduced our wives to this woman. Everyone else went next door, and I chatted with her for another 10 minutes while finishing my beer. It was a very normal conversation, no flirting at all. I finished my beer, and then she invited me back to her place. I declined. After all, I had just met my wife next door. She proceeded to have a full-on meltdown standing in the bar and screaming at me for wasting her time. It was surreal. Story 25. I once started seeing a girl, not officially dating, just hanging out and hooking up. It was my first relationship, so I wanted to take things slow and see where it went. She, on the other hand, seemed obsessed with intimacy and romance. Maybe not obsessed, but it felt that way compared to my more laid-back approach. After only a month, she told me she was going to work for the military for about 6 months. I respected her decision, but she wanted to make things official right before she left. I wasn't ready to move that fast, and being tied down while she was gone didn't feel right, so I said no. She flipped. accusing me of using her, which we both knew was untrue, and tried to guilt trip me into waiting for her return. That's when her true personality showed, and I realized I couldn't be with someone that needy and aggressive. I won't deny that she helped me come out of my shell. I have severe anxiety around new people, and she understood that, but she also tended to make me uncomfortable. I think about her once in a while, and I'm pretty sure I made the right choice. Story 26. A friend's current on and off girlfriend kissed me, and I wasn't into it. I turned down her offers. Later, she launched into this whole story about how long we'd wanted each other, how much we'd flirted, and how this had been inevitable for 5+ years, all of which was completely untrue. She unloaded all of it in front of my friends so they could witness her claims. She started screaming at me, trying to hug me, and putting her hands on my thighs and groin. I kept saying, "No, you're wrong and completely insane." Then she ran to her ex/on and off boyfriend and told him I was behind everything, blaming me for everything she had just admitted. She claimed I kissed her. I didn't. That I'd wanted her for 5 years. I didn't. And that I said this was inevitable. I didn't. Unsurprisingly, he freaked out. Story 27. One of my buddies broke up with his girlfriend because she was becoming increasingly clingy and possessive. She just didn't accept that they were broken up. She kept showing up at his place, coming to ours, waiting outside for him, and interacting with his family. Basically acting like they were still together. He was in the process of getting a restraining order when all of a sudden she stopped. She had found someone else to obsess over. Story 28. I was working at a coffee shop and my manager took a liking to me. I was pretty oblivious because 1, I wasn't attracted to her at all, and 2, I had a girlfriend at the time. Everyone there was fairly young, so we'd hang out occasionally. At the Christmas party, she tried to sit on my lap. I was extremely uncomfortable and left shortly after. Within weeks, I started getting calls from a blocked number at all hours. My girlfriend started getting similar calls, sometimes from a woman saying things like, "He doesn't love you and he's going to break up with you." Eventually, my girlfriend began receiving emails with the same messages. It was incredibly creepy. Much later, after I no longer worked there, I realized who was likely behind it. We figured she must have accessed my phone when I left it in the back room and got my girlfriend's contact information. My girlfriend and I did end up breaking up for unrelated reasons, but that whole situation was seriously unhinged. Story 29. There was a girl at work, let's call her Stacy, who had secretly had a crush on me for 2 years before I found out, and she was later fired. I think everything that happened was influenced by a few factors. I was able to take my lunch break early, which put me on the same schedule as her. My girlfriend wanted to have lunch with me at work, and Stacy and I talked almost every day. One day, as I was walking to my car to go home, Stacy approached me from behind and asked, "Who was that woman with you at lunch?" When I explained it was my girlfriend, Stacy made a huge deal about my girlfriend being Asian, which was strange because Stacy is the same type of Asian, Vietnamese. I tried explaining that to her, which seemed to smooth things over a little, but feeling confused and seeing no way to recover the conversation, I said I had to get home and left. The next day, Stacy was not there, which was a relief because she had made the previous day awkward, and I had no idea why at that point. The next week, Stacy still hadn't returned. One of her team members, Tammy, asked me why Stacy needed to take such a long break. The question caught me off guard and confused me even more, but I replied, "Why would I know anything about that? Stacy and I only talk at work. I don't even have her number." At this point, it was hard to tell who was more confused, Tammy or me. I could literally see the gears turning in Tammy's head as she tried to formulate her next question. Eventually, she said, "I thought you and Stacy were going out. She tells us about all the amazing dates you go on all the time." Tammy then proceeded to describe some of these dates I had actually taken my girlfriend on and had shared with Stacy. My mouth and throat went completely dry and I felt like throwing up. Stacy had constructed an imaginary life with me, doing things with her that I actually did with my girlfriend, and then presented this to her team. I told Tammy that I do, in fact, have a girlfriend and that Stacy was not her. I pulled out my phone and showed Tammy pictures of my girlfriend and me together. While my girlfriend and Stacy share similar heights and builds, my girlfriend is porcelain white and Stacy is dark. There are other differences between my girlfriend and Stacy, but those were the ones that would be immediately noticeable. Tammy was probably more confused than I was at that moment and seemed to slink back to her team. Stacy showed up the following week but refused to make eye contact with me when she walked into the building, which was preferable at that time. About an hour later, she was escorted out of the building by my boss, the head of security. Stacy was clearly furious. Apparently, Tammy had confronted her about her fantasies before she even reached her desk. Stacy had a meltdown and attacked Tammy. I still have no idea why Stacy was obsessed with me the way she was. She was extremely attractive and fit. While at the time I was a 275 to 310-pound blob, Stacy was making around $75,000 a year, and I was a security guard barely making $40,000. I'm also into really nerdy stuff that I know Stacy dislikes, like Magic, The Gathering, Warhammer 40K, and MMORPGs. But I guess you can't try to fit crazy into a box. Anyway, this all concluded about 6 months ago, and Stacy has basically dropped off the face of the earth. Story 30 I lived in, Denver, Colorado, and had a nice fling with a local woman who worked for Marriott. She was fun, and we got along brilliantly. I was a contractor, engineer, and tended to move with my work, so eventually I relocated to Atlanta. We talked a couple of times after I moved, but that was about it. Fast forward 3 weeks. She had moved into the same apartment complex in Atlanta where I lived. She even knew which unit I was in. What started as a casual FWB relationship had turned into something disturbing. She had essentially become a stalker who moved across the country to follow me. I moved out of there as quickly as possible and cut off all communication. Story 31. Kinda weird one. My freshman year of college got off to an interesting start. I was pretty lonely, so I made it my goal to talk to 5 people each day, just random people out and about, and boy did I suffer for it. I met a girl who was absolutely gorgeous, way out of my league, like I'm playing t-ball and she's in the major leagues. She was awesome, and we started chatting. I got her number, and then things took a strange turn. She started seducing me with money, and it worked really well. She said things like, "You can use my second car anytime." I didn't even have a car at the time, score, and "you can live with me." Goodbye, awful dorm. But when we started talking about intimacy, she got really weird. She wanted it constantly, like 24/7, and I was immediately thrown off. I thought, okay, this has to be some kind of joke. Ha ha ha, you can stop now. I'm embarrassed enough. But she kept talking about all these different things. Some of them were awesome, but it was just way too much, way too soon. In the middle of our conversation about intimacy, she sent me a message that made me stop. "I miss my mom and sister." What? Apparently she had lost her mom and sister in a car accident just a month earlier. Rough news, right? Yeah, especially hearing that when you're an hour into an intimate conversation. After that, she started bringing it up more. Things like, "We can do each other's hair like my sister and I used to." At this point, I tried to be nice. "Oh yes, that sounds fun. I'd be happy to help you remember your sister." Then it got even stranger. She started talking about kids. Yes, kids. Like our kids. We had only talked for about a week, so this was an immediate no for me, especially after she started talking about all the intimate things we do, including things like me not having to wear protection. Looking back, I see why it was such a red flag. Slowly but surely, I tried to make it clear I wasn't interested. But this girl, well, she was a little psycho. I couldn't entirely blame her. She had clearly been through some serious stuff. But I did not expect her to blackmail me with pictures of my own dong. She sent me back a picture of my own dong that I had sent over. Snapchat. Yeah, I know, weird. But she had asked for it over and over until I finally sent it. She attached the picture with a text. "Don't want this to fall into anyone's hands, do you?" At the time, I was a new freshman at a big school where fraternities and social status felt important, at least to my freshman brain. But this girl straight up couldn't handle rejection. She ended up mass messaging me daily with little threats mixed with attempts to seduce me. One moment it would be, "I'll send a picture of your face and a picture of your dong to your family and teachers." And the next it would be, "If you stay with me, I'll take you on a vacation to Milan for spring break." Story 32. She broke up with me via text while I was traveling for work. We fought a lot, it wasn't working, and while I was bummed, life went on. Down the road, we somehow reconnected and met up. One thing led to another. She told me she wanted to bang, and of course I gave in. Unprotected, but I pulled out a few. It was a bad idea, and obviously wasn't going to work, so we gradually stopped talking, and I started seeing someone else. Eventually, she told me she was pregnant. Blah, blah. Through numerous means, it was proven she wasn't. A few years later, just this month actually, I saw her in a grocery store. Figuring life had moved on for both of us in the 2-year interim, I said, "Hi." Big mistake. She apparently still carries my cryptic pregnancy in her spine. To show me, she lifted her shirt and moved her stomach in and out. She told me she'd been diagnosed as crazy, then asked me to give her money for a bottle of prenatal vitamins because they were so expensive. I declined. That set her off. Apparently, I live a life of excess and should be able to help with vitamins for a non-baby. Shortly after, I tried to end the conversation and make my escape. That's when she decided she hated me and was glad she'd realized what a terrible person I am. During this encounter, she said, "I'm so mad I could throw this avocado at you," and then actually threw it at my head. Ninja reflexes. I deflected it. She stormed away. I noticed a small child who had witnessed the whole thing and gave the universal crazy person signal by circling my finger next to my head. The child said she believed her and that I was a terrible person. What the heck? Story 33. Not me personally, but a first-hand account from a guy I lived with in college. We were in a farm area in the middle of nowhere living in a duplex. We had the bigger portion of the house because there were 4 of us and they had 2. The neighbors were young women in their early 20s who worked locally at the college we all attended. One night, we had a bonfire, were drinking, and having a good time. We decided to invite our neighbors out. Oops. My buddy, let's call him Tim, decided it would be a great idea to sleep with not one, but both of the neighbor girls on their couch. Turns out one of them was bat crap crazy. When he refused to go out with her later that week, she started knocking on our door at all hours asking if he still lived there. We told her he had dropped out and moved, which wasn't true. She continued to be a nuisance for almost 2 months. We spoke to our landlord, who forced both girls to move out. We thought it was over, but 2 weeks later, my buddy's tires got slashed. All 4 of them. He filed a police report and set up a hidden camera on his car after replacing the tires. A few weeks later, we caught her on video slashing his tires and breaking his truck window. Needless to say, she was arrested and forced to reimburse him thousands of dollars for the damages. Never heard from her again, and thank God for that. Story 34. A year ago, I was working as a waiter in a quiet restaurant. A girl came in to order takeout, and since I was the only one working the front, I had to be friendly and courteous. After chatting a bit, her food was ready, and on her way out, she gave me her number. Since I wasn't interested, I didn't call or text her and thought that was the end of it. However, she came back 3 separate times that same week, acting as if nothing had happened, all while being flirtatious. She ordered the smallest items on the menu, just a bowl of rice or a small salad, so she could claim she was just a customer. It was obvious what her intentions were, but I had to act friendly and normal since I needed the job and had to endure the harassment. Thankfully, after a few weeks, she stopped coming in. Story 35. This didn't happen to me personally, but my friend told me what she did to a guy she dated right after college, post-breakup. She caught him cheating on her, literally in the act, not through phone snooping or anything like that. This was 20 years ago, and she went nuclear. It got physical. She went after both of them. The police were called, and all that drama. They lived together in his apartment and shared an indoor cat. After ending things, she went over to pack her stuff when he wasn't home. Here's where it gets wild. Once she finished packing, she went to the cat's litter box, took every turd, broke them into smaller pieces, and hid them in every piece of clothing she could. Socks, pants pockets, jacket pockets, shirt pockets, anything that could hide them. She even stepped on them to mash them into the fabric. But she didn't stop there. She urinated all over his bed, pillows, and mattress, then threw the pillows in the dryer, effectively baking the smell in. We've always been friends, never anything more. But knowing this story has ensured I never cross her in any way whatsoever. Story 36. This isn't nearly as crazy as some of the other stories here, but in high school, there was a girl in my bio class who liked me. Everyone bullied her, and I had gently let her know that she had trouble making friends because she had been mean to people at the start of the year. Anyway, she got my Facebook and asked me out over Messenger, if you can believe it. I politely declined and even suggested another friend of mine she could go for. She said okay and seemed fine, but she clearly wasn't. The next day, after bio, she handed me a note asking me out again. It was a very long, stylized, handwritten letter, clearly personalized and rhyming, about how my eyes were like stars or something. I was sick of it, so I highlighted all her spelling errors, gave it a C, and wheeled away. 5 out of 7 clinical depression. Story 37. The girl I dated was acting kinda weird and always wanted to read my phone, but I didn't think much of it until I found out she was cheating on me with 4 other guys at the same time. Naturally, I left her. A couple of weeks later, another girl from the next town over asked me out, and I said yes. We were dating for about a week when my ex found out. She started crying her eyes out and telling the whole school that I was a terrible boyfriend for cheating, trying to turn everyone against me. But she soon discovered that dating an entire burger shop and then dumping them all makes you seem just a bit reckless. Nobody believed her, and she eventually dropped out to be homeschooled because she had no friends left and no chances of making new ones. She kept texting me, trying to get me back, but I eventually blocked her. High school is wild. Story 38. At work, I received a call while I was at the front desk of a hotel. She casually asked, "Hey, is such and such there?" I'm pretty careful not to confirm whether people work at my company, so I didn't say yes or no. I put her on hold and told my coworker that a girl was calling for him. He freaked out. "No, I don't work here," he said, and told her to stop calling. This guy had gone on one date with her and didn't want a second one. But she kept acting like they were dating. She would show up in the parking lot of his complex, hang out outside, and call him on his phone saying things like, "Hey baby, how are you doing?" She was stalking him. He was a nice guy, but naive to what was happening. I straight up told him, "She is stalking you. You need to not talk to her anymore. She's trying to get a reaction, and that's exactly what she's getting." He denied it. "No, she's just confused," he said, making up all sorts of excuses. I told him he should really tell our boss. Our boss was cool and would have made sure she didn't bother him. "No, it's not like that," he insisted. Kid, it is like that." I felt bad for him. Eventually, he told our boss. Luckily, our boss's daughter had been stalked by an ex before, so she's very protective about things like this, but I could tell he was still pretty embarrassed about it. Story 39. Oh boy, do I ever have a doozy. I met a girl on Bumble at the end of February and met up for brunch about a week later. Nothing. Special. Not bad, but I didn't feel a connection, so I didn't see a reason to pursue things further. I thanked her for a nice brunch and wished her the best in her dating adventures. She didn't reply. Okay, whatever. About a week later, she texted me. "Hey, I'm in your area. Do you want to get coffee?" I agreed since I was having a relatively quiet night and kind of wanted to get out of the house. She had literally caught me at the perfect time, and I figured maybe I'd give her a second chance. Maybe I'd missed something. Coffee happened, nothing changed, but she seemed nice. We hugged goodbye. Another week passed. It was Thursday around 9 p.m., and she texted again, "I'm in your area. Want to get a beer?" I had a flight to the US the next day at 1 p.m., so I didn't have to get up early and kind of felt like a beer. I agreed. We had a great time, but again, there was still no connection for me. We laughed at funny videos and chatted casually, and one thing led to another. She ended up at my place to watch a few videos. Totally platonic in my mind. I wasn't even thinking anything else. About 30 minutes into sitting on my couch, she suddenly said, "You haven't even kissed me yet." "What the hell?" I replied, trying a bit of sarcasm. "Does that mean I need to get up?" Hoping to signal that I wasn't into it. She called my bluff. "Okay, fine," she said, moving in close. She kissed me, and by kiss I mean a solid, open-mouthed kiss, immediately biting down on my bottom lip. Not a playful, flirty bite, but like she was trying to chew an overcooked steak. I literally pulled her jaw off my lip and told her very clearly to never do that again. She went in for another kiss, biting again, this time with such force that I swore she drew blood. I checked. She left a serious mark, but thankfully no blood. I asked her to leave immediately, and thankfully she did. Over the weekend, while I was in the US, she texted me saying she wanted to have a threescore with me and her friend, and that she wanted to take me to Oasis, a well-known local club. I didn't reply. She continued texting on Monday when I returned. I still didn't reply. On Tuesday, I finally responded, telling her I wasn't interested and that I thought we shouldn't talk. She asked why. I explained that I didn't see a future with her and, more importantly, that she couldn't respect my boundaries or consent. She replied, "Whatever, you'll get used to it." I replied, "Take care," and left it at that. The next day, I tried to open Bumble and found I couldn't log in. I contacted their support and they told me I was banned, but wouldn't explain why beyond, "We've received reports of inappropriate behavior by you, and we strive to protect our users." I asked if it was because of or made by this one woman. They said reports are kept anonymous for safety, which I agreed with. I then explained the situation with this woman and screenshot all the messages from Thursday onward, showing her admitting to crossing my consent boundaries, asking for a threescore, a club, etc., my rejections, and then her accusing me of being abusive. Bumble support replied, "Thank you, we will review." An hour later, they responded, "Thank you, your account has been reinstated and we apologize for any inconvenience." An hour after that, I got a text from her. "Go F yourself, you piece of crap." Guys, hell, anyone. Lesson of the day. Always protect yourself. Behind closed doors, it's your word against someone else's. Always act ethically, treat others the way you would want or would want your child to be treated, and never trust someone who hasn't earned it. In all fairness, the moment she started asking for the threescore and all that, I knew something was off. I more or less set a situation to get her to admit she crossed boundaries in my home, and I had to ask her to leave. She fell for it, and that ended up being my saving grace. Story 40. Just over a year ago, I started talking to a girl on a dating site one Sunday. She seemed perfect, stunning, intelligent, chatty, and interesting. We met a few days later on Wednesday night in her hometown, just a half-hour train ride away. Wow, I was blown away. She was incredible in person, and she was really into me too. We talked about when we were next free to hang out, and it turned out we were both free Thursday night. We had so much fun that we decided to meet again Friday night, and she ended up staying over at my place. It felt so comfortable and natural, and I couldn't believe my luck. Saturday morning, she dashed off to work. After she left, I started getting a series of text messages questioning me about one of my best friends, a girl I've known for around 15 years. It's purely platonic. I'm estranged from my family and have been for well over a decade. My friend is like a surrogate sister to me. I explained this to my date, and after arguing against her paranoia, she seemed to accept it. The following day, she called me. She was distraught and upset about her job, feeling disrespected and taken advantage of. She had already mentioned some of this to me and had told me about her plans to look elsewhere. I reminded her of this and explained that, even though we had only just met, I would do what I could to help. She angrily told me she didn't want my help or advice and hung up. I tried calling back, but there was no answer. She eventually messaged me later, apologizing for the outburst and explaining that she was also upset because she didn't know my intentions, given my close friendship with another girl. I told her she needed to let go of that and assured her I was very much into her. We decided to hang out Monday night. She came over to my place again, and we ordered takeaway. While waiting for the delivery, she casually dropped a bunch of racist slurs about the delivery. Guy, I was blindsided and told her I wasn't okay with that. She got upset, reasoning that all her family said these things, so it must be okay, right? I told her it wasn't. We still ended up enjoying a lovely, frosty evening together. She eventually expressed that she didn't appreciate being treated like a child and told what she could or couldn't say. We decided to sleep separately that night and see where things went in the morning. While I was at work on Tuesday, I received a torrent of messages from her. She told me how upset she was about everything, apologized for what she had said, insisted she wasn't racist, and said she really wanted to see me again. I asked when she was free, and she said she was still in town that night, Tuesday night. She came over again and explained that she had an important appraisal meeting the following day and needed to be in bed early and up early. I let her know that I was actually working a late shift, so I wouldn't be up until a couple of hours after she left. She said that was fine. We had a nice evening together and things seemed right again, although having these disagreements less than a week after meeting her was already ringing alarm bells. Wednesday morning, she got out of bed early to get ready for work, and I let her know I was staying in bed since I didn't have to be up for a few hours yet. She eventually left, and I went back to sleep. When I woke up again, I messaged her to see how her meeting went. She told me it went awful, that she had been crying in the bathroom all morning, and not to bother messaging her anymore, because I clearly didn't care. Her reasons? A, I hadn't seen her out the door like a real man that morning, and B, I hadn't messaged sooner to check on her. I was stunned. This was the fourth time in a week since we had met that we argued. She berated me for not caring about her, and I reminded her that on Sunday when she called me, she had berated me for exactly caring too much. At this point, I didn't really know what to do. We argued by text all day while I was at work, and it continued into the night. She brought up my friend again, her paranoia completely overdrive. She insisted she was a good-natured person, but that I had somehow brought out the worst in her, and that she hated acting that way. She told me she had been considering moving to my town to make things easier for us. She said she had never met anyone like me before, and that she truly believed in a romantic fairy tale future. At the same time, she told me I wasn't innocent, and that I had caused her trouble, inconvenience, and pain. The messages were full of babbling contradictions, accusations, and emotional extremes. I had known her for approximately 10 days, and only 7 in person. I suggested we maybe just cool off a little, step back, reassess, and give each other a couple of days. She responded by telling me I was cruel, nasty, and that it was no wonder I was estranged from my family because why would anyone want to know me? Now, I'm largely over the family stuff. It's been difficult at times, but I have a support network of really excellent friends. I had, however, never had someone take that piece of personal information, something I shared with her in good faith, and use it against me to try to put me down. Oh man, it hurt. Right at that moment, I told her we were done. She wasn't done, though. I must have received around 80 to 90 messages for the remainder of Wednesday night, Thursday, and Friday. She alternated between apologizing, insisting we were both victims, claiming we were both responsible for the fallout, begging me to give her another chance, telling me to respond because this was my last chance at happiness with her, and insisting I owed it to her. Eventually, I caved and asked her to please leave me alone. That resulted in another 80 to 90 messages. I asked again, firmly this time, and then blocked her. Peace. A couple of weeks later, I was back on the dating site. Let's try again. It took all of about 10 minutes online before I received messages from her. She had spotted me immediately, homing in like a heat-seeking missile. She was extremely sorry, she said. She'd been dealing with hardship and stress and had wrongfully taken it out on me. She'd looked at what she said and how she acted and understood how awful she had been. Of course, she still insisted I should shoulder some of the blame. No explanation given. And naturally, she was asking for another chance. I asked her to please give me some time to think it over and that I'd get back to her. She wasn't happy with this because apparently it was a simple yes or no and I shouldn't mess her about. I repeated my request. Please leave me alone for now and I'll get back to you. Stop with the pressure and the angst. She didn't relent. She was desperate for her answer now, again insisting she was owed it. So I told her no. Boy, did she blow up. A tirade of messages poured through the dating app, and I finally had to block her there as well. About a month later, a letter arrived. Before even opening it, I noticed a few red flags. The address was handwritten in a clearly unprofessional way. The postmark was from her hometown, and the weight and thickness told me there was a novel inside. I got a sinking feeling. Sure enough, inside was a 5 or 6 page A4 letter, telling me once again to give her a chance. It was all very woe is me, and she pulled the same peculiar trick she had before, flattering me while insisting I was to blame. At the end of the letter, she included her number and told me to contact her if I'd changed my mind. She also said that if I didn't respond, she would accept it and move on. I didn't respond. As far as I was concerned, it was done. A couple of months later, I received a text out of the blue from a number I didn't have saved. Hey, it's name. Just thought you'd like to know. I got a new job and moved to your town. I live on the street just next to yours by coincidence. Let me know if you want to hang out. After that, I kept all my windows and doors locked and the curtains drawn for about 3 months. Thankfully, I haven't heard anything since. I think it's finally over. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.